everyone, welcome to Grok.IT episode 5. It is May 3rd, 2013. My name is Spot, and I'm here with my co-host. Actually, I'm the co-host. He's the host, Brandon. Say hello, Brandon.
Hello.
That's Brandon. We're going to bring you some interesting news tonight, strung together with some random ramblings. And then we might actually talk about some more personal things later on, and we hope it doesn't get too dirty. That's what we got going, I know. So, people building a game about making games and pirating.
They are very full of themselves.
You think they're full of themselves?
Yeah.
Why?
Okay, I understand, like, okay, you make a game, that's great. But you don't get to say, look at, how rampant piracy is when you put out the crack.
They didn't put out a crack.
No, they did. They themselves put it out.
They didn't put out a crack.
Or they put out their, the game for free.
You're right. They put out a version of the game.
Yes.
Right? Which was not actually cracked, because the game has no DRM on it. It doesn't have to be cracked. So it doesn't have to be cracked, and they put it out, and it's a version of the game.
Yeah.
It's a different version of the game.
My thing is, they did it and they announced it to say, guys, look at how bad piracy is. Now you guys get to see it from the developer end. You put out this game. It's not piracy because you put out the game. If I put something of mine out,
know that.
Okay, I guarantee you most of the traction it's gotten is because they announced, hey guys, we put out this game for free, and it's got this little change in it.
Well, yes, but by the time all the press came out, they had already done it. That's where the press came from.
I'm pretty sure they announced it beforehand.
Why would they announce it?
Because they're idiots?
Right, it makes no sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't make sense to do this at all.
I don't think they announced it. I would actually challenge you to come up with some proof for that.
I am looking right now, actually.
Okay. If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, I believe it's Greenhearts Games released their first game, which was a game dev tycoon, where you start a studio in a garage and you build games. And by building games, you kind of select options at different phases of the development. And based on the options, they cost you money, and you can research different technologies, etc., and build it into a great studio. And one of the things that came out in the press, which me and Brandon are at odds about as to win, is that there was a free version that they posted on torrent sites, and I do not believe that they marked it as being from them. They marked it as being a pirated version, that if you pirated it and got that version, everything seemed fine until you got into a bigger studio and your game started being completely taken down by massive piracy, to a point where it would inevitably drive your studio to bankruptcy, which I find to be, what's the right word, hilarious, as did a lot of the press. I absolutely love it, because it's no secret whatsoever that piracy is a serious problem for developers, etc., especially independent developers. Of course, this whole segment is kind of going downhill because Brandon is not talking because he's off researching so he can be right.
Okay, I tried making my point and you shut it down.
That's because you're wrong.
No, I am not wrong.
They show me where it says that they announced it before.
Let's pretend that you are right in that aspect.
Okay.
Okay. They are taking the stats of this and saying, look guys, look what, this is how much money we lost, right? I mean, that's what they're trying to say.
I don't think that they've said it. I think that they threw it out there as a honeypot to attract bees, and it worked. And I find that to be hilarious. I've read multiple articles, and I've never seen them claim anything about lost money.
Okay, so I'm reading actually this thing on their website right now. This actually has the statistics of it. And they're actually in here saying, like, over 93.6% of players stole the game. They didn't steal anything.
I think they're talking about intent.
This is the problem I have, though, with this. There have actually been cases of other, like, law companies or whatever have done this, is they've actually released things to get people to download it so they can then go after them. Now, Greenheart Games, I'm sure isn't trying to go after people for this incident, but you can't say that players stole the game when you put it out. It doesn't matter if it was just some...
No, it matters. It matters if it's official or not. If you're saying it in a court of law, then it matters. Maybe they should have said, this many players intended to steal it. Here's the deal. If you walk up behind someone and you take their wallet, and it turns out that it was your wallet, the fact that you took it not knowing it was your wallet doesn't really matter. The fact that you intended to steal it is no different whatsoever.
Then they need
in a court of law, they might need to change their wording for extremely critical people like you. But I don't think most people are like that.
Perhaps.
I'm just saying.
I get what you're saying. I'm a real stickler for, like, perception, how people mean for things to be perceived and how they are. And so when I see something like this, I see it as they use certain wording to perceive something that's not exactly true.
Well, if you're not trying to prosecute, the difference between saying this many people stole this and this many people were trying their hardest and thought they succeeded to steal this is really not that much of a difference. I mean, on a massive, minute technicality scale, sure. But if you're not in a court of law, it doesn't really matter. Unless you're just really, really anal about it. And currently, I only know one person that is that anal about it.
Who? I know. My parents said I should have been a lawyer.
And that's fine. Actually, it's very valuable understanding how certain minor technicalities like that can work. But if it's not in a court of law, and it's not going to be, it's kind of like, I personally am a huge believer in things like honeypots. If I put out a game that was downloadable, I would flood the torrent sites with all types of versions of my game that were screwed up, and I would make up where's release groups and have ASCII things made for the Ninfo files. I'd make it look just like pristine and as authentic as possible, and I would laugh my ass off.
That's you.
I think you should reap what you sow.
I definitely agree, and I don't pirate games. I mean, I used to, most definitely I used to. I don't anymore.
The creator of the games have actually been quoted as saying they understand that certain people don't have the money for the games or that they can't buy the games, and they're completely cool with those people just grabbing it off of a torrent site. The real version. They said that they take exception with the people who do have the money and they just want to get it for free anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not interested in paying, which in this particular case, the game's only like $7.
No, I mean, I get it. From my end of things, I'm looking at this as, big news sites are going to pick up on this. And it's going to, whether they intend for it to or not, it's going to turn into, look how bad piracy is, or, these people are stealing when nobody stole anything because they released it.
This is kind of like the thing where some people say that the police doing sting operations is not fair. As an example, they say that for the police to put a purse in a shopping basket in a grocery store unattended and watch to see if someone comes by and tries to steal it and then arrest them, they say that's not fair.
I see where you're coming from.
Because it wasn't actually a purse that belonged to anyone, it was just a plant. But the thing is, from that person's point of view, there is no difference whatsoever. If you're trying to judge that person's character, there's no difference to that person's character at all.
I understand completely what you're saying. And I agree with, what you're saying, the person's character and their intent. I completely agree with that. My whole thing has been the wording that's been used and how they're putting out, like, this many people went to steal our game. Like, I get it, but don't say that it was stolen, because it wasn't when you put it out. Now, if they didn't put it out, and this is actually the amount of people that stole it, publish those results and be mad. I fully will support you with that.
So your entire issue with the whole thing, which you're pretty much allowing to overshadow everything else, is that they didn't say intended to steal.
Yes.
Well,
I don't have many rules. The rules I have are important to me.
I can tell. You want to know something absolutely amazing and shocking even?
What?
It turns out Activision is going to be releasing another Call of Duty game, and it's going to be a launch title on the Xbox, the new one. I couldn't believe it. I was like, who could have foreseen that?
So I like how it's not a Ghost Recon or Ghost Warrior or anything like that. It's Call of Duty Ghost, which one of the things that I'm confused on, is it a stealthy type deal? Wasn't there a player named Ghost in Modern Warfare?
Maybe. I'm not a huge COD fan, so
I'm not really either.
But, we all know that most hardcore COD players don't play COD for the story anyway.
But yeah, so, I thought it was interesting. They didn't show any gameplay in the trailer.
Just about the trailer?
Yeah, it's just that 1 minute little, there's a man in a mask, and then there's other guys in masks. Masks. Go.
I liked what they were trying to do with the trailer. I liked the direction. I think the VO voice was wrong, and some of the chunks of the dialogue were too long.
They could have easily just grabbed gameplay from, like, Modern Warfare 2 and 3 and stuck it in there, and it would have looked exactly like Modern Warfare 4 is going to look, or Ghost, or whatever.
I don't know about that. They said it's a completely new engine, and it's shipping on next-gen hardware. I think it'll probably look quite a bit better. I mean, you have to remember, the Xbox is very, very old.
No,
so the latest COD game looks like crap.
The latest COD game looks like crap, but it looks even worse compared to Battlefield 3.
But one of the reasons is I think COD is primarily built to focus on consoles, whereas COD 3 was built on Frostbite 2, which is a general engine, which they license. So they focus, I think, primarily on PC, which is always top of the line hardware, and then they tune it down.
I get it. And that's one of the sticklers is like every 2 years, the same company releases a game. I wish, stuff got work done because you can tell the majority of their effort goes into the multiplayer. That's where they make their money. And so I just,
Especially with map packs and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They make a ton of money with that. Especially with the amount of money that company has. Have another group working on engine or engine updates or something, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, they said it's a completely new version of the engine, so it makes
So, like I said, like
really
for this one, awesome. Like that is great. I can't wait to see it. I hope it looks amazing. But past experiences have left me disappointed.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. The trick of it is it obviously hasn't left the people who keep buying it disappointed enough. That's the problem.
It's because they're all bros who, don't care. Are drinking 40 as well, fisting each other and eating lots of pizza.
Yeah, I mean, it's the modern gamer crowd. I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of weird because people talking about how gamers are a big thing now, and used to they were kind of nerdy. And I always kind of think, well, actually, gamers that you talk about now weren't really around back when gamers were nerdy.
Yeah,
those are different
whole new
people.
Breed.
The nerdy people are still kind of nerdy,
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones that still play retro games on emulators and PC elitists and stuff. The new people that play COD on consoles all the time, that's kind of a different person, to be honest.
Brings in the whole debate of what's a gamer and what's not, like hardcore gamer or not hardcore gamer and all that kind of stuff. Because, like, here's the thing. In my eyes, if you play one game, I don't see you as a hardcore gamer. I see you as someone who really likes to play that one game. For someone to be a hardcore gamer, they have to, A, look up stuff about video games, play lots of different video games. They have to invest at least part of their lives into video games, not just playing them, but keeping up with what's going on.
They actually need to be a hobbyist.
Yeah.
So it seems that Sega and Gearbox are getting sued in California over false advertising claims for Aliens Colonial Marines. And I just need to say, I thought this exact same thing when I read about this stuff in Europe thing, and I'm like, okay, well, showing stuff that's not actually in the game is a no-no and you shouldn't do that. But I'm a huge Aliens franchise fan, so I was really hyped about the game. And everything I saw, and I saw everything, never made the game look that great. I mean, I never saw anything that was like, wow, that's gonna be amazing. I mean, some of the trailers were well cut, but the actual content was never, it's kind of like, wow, you expected the game to be great? Because none of the trailers looked great.
Yeah.
I kind of considered it bad from the start, and I assumed that only like hardcore Aliens fans were going to really go for it.
I've never taken demos of any kind as what the final product is going to be like.
Well, that's what's really funny about this is that they ship demos and then they put an embargo on the press, which I think that's a really big sign that there's an issue, that they know there's an issue.
It goes back to what we had talked about in another podcast about the Ouya, shipping an unfinished demo product.
Sure. I think it's quite a bit different, but we disagreed back then as well. So, I mean, I think back in that particular case, they weren't shipping to press. They were only shipping to developers that asked for developer versions of the console. In this case, they were shipping a quote-unquote polished product. It was on the shelf. Consumers could buy it. And it didn't look or act like what the gameplay trailers that said they were gameplay trailers, right?
Yeah.
Actually said. And so I think that's quite a bit different. Now, again, I don't think the original gameplay trailers looked that great anyway. So I don't know why everyone was surprised. But I think the press embargo really shows that Sega knew there was a problem. And they were literally trying to cover it up before launch so that it wouldn't impact their
sales.
Their 0-day sales. Yeah. Hopefully they'll learn their lesson a little bit and other people learn their lesson a bit. And Sega has just been, I don't know, they've just went downhill on the publishing side. I mean, this and actually Gearbox too. As long as it's their own IP, they seem to do great. And I really hope they don't screw up the Homeworld IP because, man.
Well, their own IP, hold on. There have been some really bad Sonic the Hedgehog games.
I said Gearbox.
I thought we were lumping those two together.
No. I'm talking about Gearbox, which is Borderlands.
Yeah. Things that are supposed to be cool and don't look cool, at least for me. The Illumi Room, Xbox's new thing, which supposedly like puts the screen on like your walls and objects in there to give you more of a peripheral vision experience. I don't know. And I get that it's still just in like research right now and everything. I don't know exactly how this will get used.
I don't think Microsoft puts out this much press about something that they honestly consider just research.
Yeah.
In the article, it said that the team that was working on this was in constant contact with the Xbox and Kinect teams. Okay, that sounds like a product development path.
Oh yeah, and there can be some really cool things done with that. Like they can put updates to stuff so you can free up your screen, you know. And so I think that's cool. But
Yeah.
I kind of hoped that they would go more in the virtual reality route of like putting on glasses that gave a little heads-up display and that kind of stuff. And
I see this kind of as a gimmick, but
Very.
it could be a cool gimmick depending on how much it costs. That's the key, right? It's one of those things where I would have to play with it, but it's possible if it cost $50, it's possible I may do that. I don't know. I think that what they're trying to make use of is, like you said, the peripheral vision area outside of your field of view, and that could be really great or it could be really bad. One place I'm interested in seeing this, I think, it could be really cool for movies. And obviously for movies, I think they would have to be shot for it. But if you think about, if you're seeing a scene where there's a medieval ship of the line on a vast ocean, and you actually have an experience of the vastness is much more because you have that ocean type color going off the screen. It could be cool. I don't know how well it would work in certain situations. About my comment about Microsoft not doing this much press for anything that's actually in research, I think they're probably researching it, but I guarantee you they didn't get here without doing massive focus groups. They've group tested this on a lot of people already, I guarantee it. So it's probably interesting enough. And it depends. If they just include it in the Xbox, that could be cool. It, again, depends on how much it's going to cost. If it's free, great. If it's $50, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? If it might be $100, but it might be worth it. You never know. You know?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I find it more interesting overall, personally, than some of the stuff Nintendo's been doing lately. So it's now there is one other thing that I'll bring up. The fact that they're pushing this, which will probably be something that will connect to the new Xbox, implies that the new Xbox should be pretty beefy. And the reason is, I mean, if you remember it, you've read dev stuff, you know, the current Xbox is still in the realm of them sometimes making the on-screen gun while you're holding it bigger so they don't have to actually draw those pixels, right? So that they can squeeze out just a little bit more from the processor. So the current Xbox is still at that point, right? But it's really old. So hopefully the new one is beefy enough to where if you consider if them using something like this product, they're going to have to draw, obviously a lot lower resolution, but they're going to have to draw all that.
Yeah. Well,
outside the screen even.
So far,
not to mention the new system's supposed to be 1080, so they're already picking up those extra pixels on every pass. So then you have everything outside the screen.
So far, from what I've heard, it's going to have 2 graphics cards. One dedicated Kinect, and if this is a Kinect add-on or something like that, then, you know, there's that. And then one dedicated for game. Now, the thing with that is, let's say, you know, the actual TV screen is going to be game, and Kinect could be everything else, you know, outside of it. So going that way, you know...
Might work well.
Yeah, it could work well, and it's a very beefy processor that they're putting in too.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if it's more beefy than the PlayStation 4, but we'll see. They might break history by actually making it like as powerful as the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I've heard 8-core processor.
Yeah, that doesn't tell me enough.
Yeah. Speaking of Microsoft products, Gears of War, someone just signed up to, produce it?
Yeah, Scott Stuber.
Yeah,
or is it Stubber? I think it's Stuber.
I'm going to say Stuber. He did Battleship, which I really liked Ted. I really liked Love and Other Drugs. I'm excited.
I have all sorts of issues with this, to be perfectly honest. First of all, I will say that while not being a massive fan of console exclusives at all, I do like Gears of War. I like the storyline. I'm a sci-fi fan. You know, it's got grit and all that stuff. And I think it could make an amazing series of movies. Unfortunately, Tony Scott isn't with us anymore, but he would be an amazing producer. You know, even Michael Bay, for example. I know a lot of people don't like his films, but Gears of War is a very big bang boom type thing, right? Gears of War has been going through some major issues. First of all, Paul Anderson was attached, which I'm glad they got rid of him, but he would probably be better than this guy. His history, he seems to focus on comedy a lot, and there are a few, but it's difficult to find any movies he's produced on IMDb that are not between a 5 and 6, which is not that good. Also, he's never executive produced a feature film until The Internship, which is about to come out. He's only ever been a producer, and his writing credits are not that great at all, and there's not many of them, and he's supposed to be writing it with Epic, and I'm only hoping that Epic's people carry the load there.
I'm sure they will.
Not to mention his only feature film is a comedy, and he seems to focus on comedy. It just seems like a really weird match. It's almost like they had some issues and they've been trying to get a new production company and all this stuff, and it's almost a slight, oh, well, that guy's done some okay stuff. Let's go with him. At which point, it would seem to me it's like, we have a really great IP. We need to back off here and not move too quick because we need to make sure that we've got quality. You know, because I see this ending up like Doom did. I don't know if you ever seen Doom. Wow.
I did not.
Okay. It was pretty bad. But yeah, I mean, and one of the reasons was that was a problem, is that they just didn't wait long enough. And they didn't go with the right people for that IP. So anyway, it bugs me because I think Gears of War movies could be amazing. They could be really like epic, no pun intended, if they're done right. But
it took me a second.
Gears of War needs Jerry Bruckheimer, right? Big time. It's a very explosions, hardcore war, aliens.
Yeah.
It needs the writers from the Transformers movies, and it needs Bruckheimer, and it needs Michael Bay, and that's the thing. It's one of those movies. It doesn't have a massive amount of story. It's about killing aliens. That's the whole thing. And being in big badass armor, and so anyway, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm gonna see it. I know a lot of movie adaptations don't turn out well, but I'm a huge Gears fan.
So, one of my favorite games of all time, EVE Online, announced the badass thing that they're going to be doing a TV series based completely around player experiences.
I'm super excited about this. Honestly, I saw this, I'm like, this is one of the coolest things I have ever seen. I love when companies get with their fans and want to be like, hey, tell us the cool things that you've done. And one of the things...
And CCP's always been like that. They're really awesome.
Been amazing with their fans and everything like that.
That's one of the things that really sets them apart from anyone else, especially in the MMO space, is that they understand that their players are their bread and butter. And I don't mean as customers. I mean, like, they have the Interstellar Council. They listen to their players constantly. They understand, because they're sandbox and they have no massive directed experience, the players are the experience. So yeah, they've been really awesome about that.
And so one of the things I'm really curious is if they're going to create instanced versions of EVE to recreate these battles, A, and B, will they offer this instanced version out to players to make like machinima and whatnot?
So you're saying like actually use the engine itself to actually do a lot of the CG that they use in the films. That would be really cool, and actually that would be pretty viable, because now you could use an engine like that and up all the settings hardcore and pre-render with it, and it's the same engine. That's a really good idea, and actually that wouldn't surprise me in the least.
And so I mean,
actually,
if they do
that would allow them to really drop the budget, because they wouldn't have to pay out hardcore to CG.
Exactly.
Oh, great idea.
And not just that, they're gonna get a lot more machinima videos coming out. That draws a lot of attention to a game.
I agree. The one thing that they may not do that is, because it's completely player driven, a lot of what helps the player driven is the brag clips. So people will post videos about massive encounters and all this stuff. And unless videos were like plainly marked embedded in the video, people could make stuff in this and then claim it was real when it actually wasn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's probably ways to get around that. What I find the most interesting about this is that for me, I'm like, okay, CCP's a great company. They're pretty awesome, but they don't really do video. That's not really their thing. So I'm like, okay, so who's the person actually on the production side of this? And I am not going to insult this guy by trying to pronounce his name, but very interesting director. And when I was looking him up, he's involved in a bunch of interesting things. One of the things he's involved is a movie I'm greatly looking forward to called Two Guns with Denzel Washington and Mark Wahlberg. He's actually the director of it, and I think he wrote it. And I don't know if you've seen the trailer, but it's a great trailer.
I really liked it.
So also he's involved in a new HBO series called The Missionary, which is kind of a Cold War spy thriller, which I'm a huge fan of HBO, and that's just awesome. In fact, I think he's directing the pilot, and I think he might be a producer along with Mark Wahlberg.
Nice. I absolutely love Cold War stuff.
Me too. My point being, though, he's got the chops for this. He's worked with big names. He's got good ratings. They're not amazing on everything, but they're a lot better than the other guy with Gears of War, let's say that. And I'm really looking forward forward to it. I'm like, okay, this could be really, really good. And so I think that they're going to have to go with, well, they're going to end up going with kind of a fine balance between dramatic intrigue, because Eve has a lot of kind of like Cold War spy type stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas, it's corporation against corporation, and there's espionage and backstabbing and all that stuff. And then, of course, all that stuff is actually realized a lot of times with the space battles and things like that. And so I think that it's going to be, kind of this half and half thing between space battles and things like that with the dramatic intrigue, etc. So, which means it's going to have really good writing, because it's not just going to be visuals. And I think your idea in using the engine is a really good thing, and I hope that they pull it off well, because I'm afraid that we might see something like Babylon 5, where it was all live action, and then they would cut to the space scenes, and the CG was far below what was supposed to be. Which there's reasons for that in Babylon 5 that I won't go into that kind of make up for it. But anyway, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Really looking forward to it. It's something we definitely agree on. And I will point out one thing. There's another game doing something kind of like this, which is Defiance. But I think one of the big differences is that Defiance is being written from the beginning by professional writers, and they're kind of cross-including things from the game. This is kind of completely different. I mean, like, from everything I've read, and it makes sense, everything in the show is going to be player-driven inspired.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because there really is no story to Eve without the player.
Exactly.
This could be really, really awesome. A lot of potential. I'll stop now, because I sound like a raving lunatic fanboy, which when it comes to Eve, I kind of am.
We all have our things.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up one other thing.
Go ahead.
The other day we were talking about something, and I said something about Guild Wars would be one of the most perfect fantasy MMOs if only the combat system was action, where you had to aim.
Yeah.
And it wasn't hotkey based. And you said that you were happy that it was hotkey based. And then I was like, that's interesting. And I wanted to ask you about it later, and now is the best time possible. So why would you rather it be hotkeys?
The one thing I really liked about Guild Wars 1 was your build, It was all about, setting up your skills in your build and trying to make the best combination you could for, like, your playstyle, and just that that you could. That's something I really liked. That's a hotkey thing.
Yeah, true.
And
so you're saying you like games where a lot of the actual skill is more on the statistical builds as opposed to the twitch.
I like knowing that I spent time on this and I bested you in the fact that my build, my stats were better because I spent time on them, not because someone was able to react a slight bit faster and got a hit on me with something,
Sure. I think that a lot of action-based stuff, though, it depends on the implementation, but a lot of the stuff that I played, which there's not a massive amount of action MMOs at the moment, but a lot of it just kind of freeing up of there's no target lock, and you could miss. That's really about it. But I've been playing Terra, and Terra has a full hotbar, and you get a bunch of different skills, and you have to use them in combat. But the difference for me is that I can miss. Whereas about the closest any hotkey MMOs get to that is you're not facing the right way, which is really annoying. But otherwise, you can be pretty much anywhere, and as long as you're within range, you can hit the key, and
I get that.
So just I guess it's a difference in taste, but I see what you're saying. It's there's a lot that goes into build stuff, and I think probably the people who are going for the complete Twitch thing with only a few skills are probably doing so to attract that new type of gamer we were discussing earlier.
Yes.
But I will point out that Terra, which is a action MMO, has a lot more skills you use at the same time than Guild Wars 2 does. FYI. So, because Guild Wars 2 only has, 4 or 5 really going at the same time? You have additions on the right, that you can do. But,
those are more your utilities.
Exactly. So. Yeah, this is May 3rd show, number 5. Happy to be here. Thankfully, Brandon's going to spend a large amount of time cleaning this up later so that what you're hearing is cleaner than what we produced.
What are you talking about? We are professionals. This is the best thing you've ever heard.
Pretty much we benefit from the concept of time travel.
Yes.
In that we don't have to let you hear this at the time we record it. Anyway, we are always looking for other hosts. Let us know feedback, etc. Email will be below. So just the email or comments.
Yeah, comment, email, video responses, smoke signals. If you want to be a host, record yourself and upload it to SoundCloud and send us an email with the link. Don't send us the file. That's bad. Send us the link. and that'd be great because we love talking to people. As much as I sometimes don't show it. Spot can affirm that. I like talking to people. And I like people.
And sometimes he likes talking to people more than me. So if there's someone else, he'll have you to talk to instead of talking to me.
Well, please save me from this, someone.
Haha. See, there we go.